The morning I woke up without a past, the sea was breathing in little white lungs. From the window of the clinic, the fjord looked like a spine of light, each vertebrae a shard of winter. A nurse with pale hair and a wool headband adjusted my pillows and asked how I felt. I told her I felt like a book that someone had underlined, then torn out the first chapters. She smiled like this was a normal thing to say in Lillesand, as if the town had heard stranger metaphors from fishermen back from storms. "My name is Elias," I said, testing the sound. It belonged to me the way a scarf belongs to a stranger who forgot it on a chair. Useful, warm, almost right. "Good," she said. "Elias is correct." "Correct according to whom?" "According to your wallet," she said, and handed me a cracked leather billfold with a photo tucked behind a transit card. The photo showed a long wooden pier, and a woman at the far end turned toward the camera with a light in her hair. She was laughing. Her left hand was mid-air, as if pushing the wind away. I felt a tremor in the room, not in the walls but in my chest, as if my ribs remembered a song my mind did not. "Do you know her?" the nurse asked. I wanted to lie and say yes. The truth was a small, hard stone. No. They said I had been found 2 nights earlier near the harbor, face down on the icy boards beside a boat with a blue stripe. No ID at first, only the wallet wedged between planks, the name stamped on a card, the photo. A fall, perhaps. A head bruised on the pier, a memory shaken loose and lost to the cold. By noon they released me with a knitted cap, a list of foods that were gentle, and the phone number of a local doctor who smelled like spruce and patience. Outside, the air tasted like peeled metal. Seagulls drifted along the fjord's edges, as if reading the town aloud. Lillesand was small enough to be carried in one pocket. A church steeple that had slipped from a child's drawing. A grocery with oranges stacked like borrowed suns. A harbor bar with a chalkboard that promised fish, soup, and songs on Friday nights. I walked until my head throbbed, then sat on a bench that faced the water. The bench was carved with initials, A+A-K-M, and in a small corner, E-A. The curve of the ampersand snagged my breath. "Elias?" The voice came from my left, surprised but careful, the way you say your own name in the dark to check if you're still there. I turned. The woman from the photograph stood an arm's length away, holding a canvas tote, a sprig of juniper poking out. The wind lifted her hair in soft, deliberate motions, as if pages were turning. "I'm Astrid," she said, then gave a small, nervous laugh. "But you know that?" I wanted to fold the silence into something that made sense. The best I could do was stand. "I hit my head," I said. "The clinic said there are holes." Something passed across her face, fear, then discipline, then a determined light like lamps switched on in an empty room. "Okay," she said. "Then we can put things back." Astrid sat beside me, leaving a narrow space between us, narrow enough to measure. She told me the town was preparing for the winter market, that the barber insisted on playing American country music, that the dog with the orange scarf belonged to a baker who had lost his husband in spring and now spoke to loaves. It sounded like gossip, but felt like a map folded open on her lap, edges catching on our knees. "You and I, what are we?" I asked. The question was a pebble dropped into the fjord. Even the gulls went quiet. Her hands tightened around the tote's handles. "She began again. We were together, are together. Then, after a heartbeat, we were supposed to leave last week. Leave where? For Reykjavik first, she said. The residency. Your letters were accepted. Photographs and essays. You said the winter would sharpen the light in your head. The light in my head felt like a broken bulb. Astrid looked at me with a softness that made me aware of my posture and sins. I can show you our apartment, she said. It's 5 minutes. You chose it because the floorboards creak like old ships. Ships? I asked. You said they keep time for you, she said, and stood. We walked along the harbor. The blue-striped boat rocked and made a sound like a tired violin. I paused at its name, painted in white, Mara. My mouth formed the word before I thought it. You used to say it meant sea nightmare, Astrid said, noticing my attention. Old Norse. You liked words with teeth. Our building had pale yellow paint and windows that gathered weather like postcards. The stairwell smelled of onions, oil, and someone's ambitious soup. Inside, the apartment was thin, long, and unafraid of drafts. Plants gathered on the windowsill as if attending a lecture on light. A coat the same wool as my cap hung by the door. I tried it on and felt my shoulders fall into grooves. Astrid placed the tote on the table and pulled out a small ceramic bowl, shaped like a winter leaf. You made this, she said, pushing it toward me. Fingerprints were still visible along the curve, a constellation of ridges I couldn't recognize, but which knew me anyway. On the wall near the kitchen, a corkboard held photos. The pier, the church in fog, 2 coffee mugs with chipped rims, a person's shadow on fresh snow, the way a bird rides. In the center, a photograph of Astrid and me, taken in a mirror. I was holding the camera. She was behind me, arms looped around my waist. My eyes in the image had a private humor to them, as if they were sharing something only my bones could overhear. This is our life, Astrid said, kind and helpless. I reached to touch the photo and felt dizzy. An image flickered in my head, a shoreline without the town, without the church, just rocks and a storm, my feet raw, a voice calling my name from the wind, and no one there. The vision snapped away, leaving me breathless. Head? She asked. Head, I confirmed and sat. The chair complained in a language of old wood. Astrid poured me water and watched me drink like I was returning from a desert I had chosen. Why does the bench say EA? I asked. It had felt important in the moment, and I was tired of letting details slide past like seals. She smiled. Because you carve badly, she said. And because we were 20 once. The smile dimmed. We almost carved a date under it. Then we changed our minds. Why? Astrid leaned back, arms folded. Because we said we didn't need proof. Because we thought we would never forget. The room acquired a hum. Not sound, exactly, but the memory of one. I stood and wandered to the bookshelf. There were travel guides, slim poetry paperbacks, with covers like winter appetites, a field guide to birds. Inside the bird book I found a pressed feather, thin as a line of ink. You used to name them wrong on purpose, she said, coming to stand beside me. You'd point at a gull and call it an albatross, then wait for me to argue. Did you? I asked. Every time, she said. Then you'd kiss me as a reward for being right. A heat crawled up my neck, shame and longing speaking in the same dialect. "I don't know how to be me," I admitted, the sentence both childish and exact. Astrid nodded, brave and breaking. "Then we'll make a new map. We'll walk the old routes. Your hands will remember the turns. Will you stay?" I asked, though the question made me feel selfish. Someone asking a lighthouse to follow him inland. "I'll stay," she said, and placed 2 fingers on my wrist, as if taking my pulse from the outside. "On one condition, name it. You keep a notebook. Every day. Everything. The way the snow tastes, the way the church bell stutters at 1/2 past, the words you forget, and the ones you find again. We did this once before, for other reasons. We can do it for this." I sat, pulled a blank notebook from the drawer she indicated, and wrote Day 1. The letters looked like ships leaving a harbor in too much fog. I wrote the list she asked for. Bell stutter, oranges, blue stripe, Astrid's hair like a quiet fire. The pen stained my fingers, blue moons under my nails. When we finished tea, she likes hers with lemon. I take mine with nothing. How did I know that? Astrid gathered her scarf and said she had to go to the school for her afternoon class. "Teenagers," she said. "They're the same in every latitude. Today they will pretend to hate poetry and then fall in love with it by mistake." "What do you teach them?" I asked. "That sometimes holding a thing up to the light is enough," she said, "even if you don't understand it yet." At the door, she paused. "If anything feels wrong, if you see, Gats call me, or go to the pier. We always meet there, always?" I asked. "Always," she said, and her smile carried a history I wish my pockets could hold. When the door closed, the apartment seemed to sigh. I washed the 2 mugs, inspected my face in the window's reflection, more tired than I felt, or maybe exactly as tired. I put on the coat again and went back into the town that was supposed to be mine. The bench waited like a patient animal. I sat and opened the notebook. A man in a red cap limped by, nodding with the authority of someone who had watched me grow up, or at least watched me argue with a fishmonger. "Good to see you out, Elias," he said. "Good to be out," I lied. He glanced at my notebook. "Writing again?" "Trying," I said. "Don't try," he replied. "Do. The fjord forgives the ones who do." Then he carried on, leaving a smell of tobacco and leather, a sentence with no punctuation. I stared at the water until the light shifted. The tide moved in, quiet as a promise. A memory knocked. A smaller bench, the smell of engine oil, my father's hands the size of forecasts, a little boy counting boats and naming them after days of the week. But when I tried to look at his face, he turned into weather. The church bell stuttered at 2:30. I wrote it down, proof that a sound exists even when you forget you heard it. From the corner of my eye, I saw a woman stop at the edge of the pier, looking out the way you do when you're waiting for a version of the past to catch up. Not Astrid. Someone older, someone practiced at not crying. She touched the railing, then left. When the sky began to thin into evening, I closed the notebook and stood. On the bench, beside where I had been sitting, lay something pressed into the slat, a paper crane, small and white. I unfolded it. Inside, written in a quick hand I recognized with a shock that felt like vertigo, were 3 words. "Meet me. Tonight." No name, and no name, no hour. Just a line drawn under the words and a small sketch of a pier. I looked at the harbor. The boat with the blue stripe rocked, a slow yes. The tide breathed in its small white lungs. I pressed the paper flat, put it inside the notebook, and let the winter settle around my shoulders like a heavy, honest coat. If the fjord could forget, maybe a man could learn. The town of Lillesand sleeps like an old photograph, creased at the edges, but still breathing. By the time the street lamps bloomed in yellow circles, I was walking toward the harbor again. The paper crane sat folded in my pocket, its edges soft from the warmth of my hand. Snow had started to fall in small, polite flakes, as if it didn't want to disturb anyone's dreams. The world smelled faintly of salt and iron. The pier stretched out like a thought I almost remembered. Each plank moaned under my boots, and the sound fell into the dark water below, where it broke into ripples of light. The blue-striped boat Mara was still there, tied to its post, whispering its name to the tide. No one else. Not yet. I waited. Wind combed the surface of the fjord in restless strokes. Somewhere far down the coast a bell buoy clanged, the sea's slow heartbeat. I pulled out the crane, unfolded it, and ran my thumb along the ink, those 3 words. Meet me tonight. The handwriting felt alive, urgent, like it had been written while crying. Elias? The voice came soft, uncertain. I turned. Astrid stood a few meters away, wrapped in her long, dark coat, a wool hat pulled low. Her breath came in clouds that the wind quickly unmade. You came, she said. I wasn't sure if I should, I said. She hesitated, then approached. I left the note. I didn't know if you'd find it. So it was you. Her mouth curved, then faltered. Yes and no. What do you mean? I wrote it, she said. But not tonight. Months ago. Before you... She gestured vaguely toward my head, toward the gap where my past should be. I used to leave little cranes when we fought. You said they looked fragile enough to keep promises. I looked at the paper in my hand as if it might change its own date. Where did you find this one? She asked. On the bench. Her brow furrowed. I haven't been there since. She stopped. Never mind. We stood facing each other, the sea between us like a witness. Do you think someone's playing a joke? I asked. She shook her head. Not here. Not in winter. The snow thickened, brushing her eyelashes white. She looked both more real and less reachable. Maybe it was me, I said quietly. Before. Maybe I left it for myself. Astrid gave a faint, tired laugh. You always loved riddles. And you hated them. Only because you never told me the answers. We smiled, but the air between us was trembling. The kind of trembling that knows something will break. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small notebook, identical to mine. You gave this to me last year, she said. You said we should both write about the same days from different eyes, so one day we'd have proof that love can be told twice and still be true. She handed it to me. Do you want to read it? I didn't. I did. I took it anyway. The first page began in her handwriting, looping and clean. January 4th. The light on the fjord looks like the inside of an eyelid. Elias says he can taste snow before it falls. He kissed me after breakfast and said, "Don't forget me even if I'm here." I turned the page. January 12th. He's been distant. The headaches. The way he stares at the water like it's a sentence he can't finish. I think he's hiding something, but every time I ask, he just says, "It's nothing, my love." I'm afraid nothing is growing. Another page. February 2nd. The doctor said it's early, but words like early mean nothing when they end with tumor. My hand shook. Astrid looked away, her shoulders drawn tight. "You told me not to tell anyone," she whispered. "Not even your father. You said you wanted to finish the project, to photograph the light before the dark came. You said we'd have time." "I had cancer," I said, tasting the word as if it were foreign. "You had it," she said. "You said the treatments made you forget names, hours, whole days. Then one night you didn't come home." "And they found me by the harbor," I murmured. She nodded. The wind rose and the boat creaked against the pier, a slow, painful rhythm. "I didn't know how to find you again," she said. "I looked everywhere. Police, hospitals, even the ferry manifests. I thought," her voice cracked, "I thought the sea had taken you." "Maybe it did," I said, staring at my gloved hands. "And gave back someone else." Astrid stepped closer, the snow crunching softly beneath her boots. "You're still you," she said fiercely, "even if the pieces don't fit. But what if the missing pieces are the ones that loved you?" I asked. Her eyes filled, steady but breaking. "Then I'll love you enough for both." For a while, neither of us moved. The fjord whispered in languages older than forgiveness. She reached for my face, fingertips tracing the scar near my temple. "You said the scar would remind you of the night we met. When was that?" "Here," she said. "The pier. You dropped your camera into the sea, and I jumped in to get it." "You jumped?" "You were the kind of man who would dive for light," she said. "I was the kind of fool who followed." The silence afterward was softer than any answer. Finally, Astrid said, "There's something else. I wasn't going to tell you yet." "What?" "You wrote me a letter the day before you disappeared." "Where is it?" She pulled a folded envelope from her coat pocket and handed it to me. My own handwriting stared back steady, careful, alive. "Astrid, if the sea forgets me, don't teach it my name. I want to see what it remembers on its own. Love, E." I read it 3 times. Each time it hurt differently. "What did you mean?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe I was tired of being afraid." Astrid took the letter and folded it again with trembling hands. "You promised me you wouldn't go alone." "I didn't mean to." She smiled through a sob. "You always said that." Behind us, the church bell struck 9. The sound rolled across the fjord like a curtain closing. Astrid stepped closer. Her breath touched my cheek. "Come home," she whispered. "Even if it's only for tonight." I nodded, unable to speak. As we turned back toward the town, the snow deepened, covering our footprints almost as fast as we made them. And behind us, unseen, the blue-striped boat rocked once. Then, twice before, one of its ropes snapped free, drifting slowly out into the dark. Morning arrived like a slow apology. The snow had stopped. The town exhaled. I woke on the couch, still wearing the wool coat, a notebook open on my chest, like a shield someone forgot to remove after the battle. Astrid was at the small kitchen table, hair pulled up, a cup between her palms. She watched me the way you watch a lighthouse through fog, counting the intervals, making sure the light returns. "You were murmuring in your sleep," she said. "What did I say?" "You were naming days." She smiled a little. "Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday then. You said Mara and went quiet." The blue-striped boat. I sat up too fast. The room tilted and corrected. "We'll visit Dr. Soren this morning," she said. "He asked us to come by." "The spruce and patience," I said, remembering the smell she'd once described. Memory moved inside me like a seal, surfacing once, then gone. On the walk, the town looked scrubbed clean, edges softened by snow. The bench wore a thin cap of white. We passed the harbor. The post where the Mara had been tied was empty. A coil of rope lay on the pier, cut or frayed, I couldn't tell which. The clinic had a door that closed as if it were reluctant to make a sound. Dr. Soren was tall, quiet, the kind of quiet that made other sounds behave. He shook my hand and gestured to the chairs. Astrid sat beside me, our knees aligned but not touching, as if obeying a law of distance. "How is the head?" he asked. "Like a house after a party," I said. "Glasses missing. Furniture where it doesn't belong." He nodded with an expression I recognized from fishermen, an acceptance that weather is not an argument you win. He asked questions, sleep, sound, images at the edges. He shone a light into my eyes and studied what the pupils did with their small, private tides. "You wrote before," he said, glancing at a chart. "Photographs, essays? I'm told I did." "You will again," he said. "But perhaps you will write differently. The brain is a forest after snow. Old paths hidden, new ones suggested." "I want the old ones," I said. "I know." He folded his hands. "And I want to be 20. He left to fetch something. In that small pause, the room grew a new gravity. Astrid's hands were folded so tightly, her knuckles went pale. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said. The air leaned in. "That day on the bench," she continued, "when we almost carved the date, do you remember how I said we changed our minds?" "I remember you said that," I said, "but I don't remember the day." "We got a call," Astrid said, "from the hospital in Bergen. The biopsy. We were 20, but the word they gave us wasn't." She swallowed. "Malignant." The syllables landed one by one, like stones stepping you into a river. "We decided not to carve the date because we didn't want a proof we would have to live after," she said. "We told ourselves it was romantic not to need it. But really we were afraid to give time a name." I listened, grateful and furious in the same moment, grateful for her for bearing the weight, furious at the puzzle I had left for my future self to solve. Before I could answer, Soren returned with a folder. He laid out scans and the growing geometry of my damage. He spoke gently and clearly. "Two things most truths are bad at. You have likely had episodes of disorientation," he said. "Wandering. The mind tries to save itself with old routes. The sea can feel like a road when the streets forget you." I thought of the letter I had written. "If the sea forgets me, don't teach it my name." Maybe I had been too obedient to my own dare. "Can it come back?" I asked. Some, he said, pieces, and meaning can precede memory. You might not recall the day you fell in love, but you'll know love when you're looked at right. He wrote a prescription. He wrote the number of a counselor in town, a kind one whose window looked out at the fjord. He also wrote, "Walk together." Every day. On the way home we didn't speak much. Words would have broken something we were still trying to carry. By noon, the harbor woke with work. 2 men were hauling a dinghy onto the slipway, their boots riding arguments in the snow. A Coast Guard truck idled near the pier. A woman in a fluorescent jacket was taking notes. Astrid and I slowed. Elias, the woman called, as if she were testing my name for balance. Good to see you upright. I'm trying it out, I said. What happened? Boat drifted loose last night, she said. Blue stripe. Name like a bad dream. The Mara, I said. That's the one. She pointed toward a low shed. We towed it in. There's something you might want to see. Inside the shed, the Mara sat on a cradle, patient like a dog who'd come home from something it couldn't explain. The hull wore scrapes, old and new. On the bench near the stern lay a camera strap, stiff with salt. Astrid inhaled sharply. Your strap. I lifted it. The leather recognized my hand before my mind did. Under the strap sat a little white shape, a paper crane, huddled like winter. That wasn't there when we towed her, the Coast Guard said. She looked at me, then Astrid, then away, respectful of ghosts. I unfolded the crane. The same quick handwriting, but not the same message. The rocks keep what the town forgets. No signature, no date. Just a small sketch of a coastline, the kind of shore where memory breaks and stays broken. Do you know what it means? Astrid asked. A picture flashed behind my eyes. Black water, white foam. A ladder bolted to rock slick with winter. The smell of engine oil and someone's laughter cut short. My stomach turned with a motion that wasn't the sea. I think I've been there, I said. Before. Where? The Coast Guard asked. North of the lighthouse, Astrid whispered, answering for me. The old slip. We used to go in summer. You called it the missing shore. I nodded. The name fit my mouth too easily. Astrid put her fingers on my wrist again, as if she could anchor my pulse to the room. We don't have to go, she said. We do, I said, surprising both of us. I think I left something there, or I promised someone I would return. She met my eyes. Then we go together. We borrowed cleated boots and a coil of rope from the shed. The Coast Guard woman, who introduced herself as Liv, insisted on driving us as far as the lighthouse road. If you fall, she said, fall toward the land. The afternoon had thinned by the time we reached the path. The lighthouse stood like a bone the sky had kept. We moved slowly along the cliff, wind pressing against us with a serious hand. Far below, the missing shore showed its teeth, black rocks, white residue of broken waves, the iron ladder descending into the throat of the sea. Halfway down the ladder, the world changed temperature. Sound narrowed to water and breath. When my boots met the stone, a shock ran up my bones like I had stepped into my own shadow. The first thing I saw was a ring of rust on the rock, the memory of a bucket once set and lifted. The second was a spray of photographs rolled, half-frozen, glued to the stone by salt. My pictures. Faces peeled away, horizons wounded. The sea had edited me with its blunt, patient knife. Elias, Astrid said, kneeling. She touched a surviving corner of a photograph, showing a hand, my hand, by the scar holding a feather against the sky. I was here, I said absurdly. Of course you were, she said gently. I searched the crevices. My fingers found a small glass vial wedged between stones, stoppered with wax. Inside a strip of paper, curled like a fish asleep. I pried the wax away with my teeth, freed the paper, and read. I plus A. We don't carve dates because the sea will keep them. If I forget, bring me here. The handwriting was mine. Astrid sat back hard as if the wind had pushed her. Her eyes filled so quickly I had to look away to keep from drowning in them. You left me a map, she said, and then you left. I thought I was protecting you, I said, hating the past tense even as I chose it, from the worst of the ending. She stood fierce and hurting. Love isn't a museum, she said. You don't protect me by locking the exhibits away. A wave reached up and smacked the rock as if to approve the line. We both laughed once, a broken, necessary sound. Look, I said. In a shallow pool, a metal tag lay under a thin skin of ice, caught on a nail. I broke the ice and lifted it. Stamped on its face, Mara -12. The last two numbers had been rubbed away by salt. The boat, Lev said from the ladder where she had stopped to give us privacy and now couldn't quite look away. She's been tied here. Recently. Astrid turned toward the horizon. You came here the night you disappeared, she said, and you meant to come back, to remember, or to finish forgetting. I didn't answer. The choice felt like a moving thing, alive and ashamed. The tide rose. The ladder rattled. Lev put 2 fingers in her mouth and whistled. Time. We climbed. At the top, the light had taken on that late Nordic quality, the world lit from a distance, as if by memory. By the time Liv dropped us near the harbor, the first stars had arranged themselves like small, stubborn arguments. We walked without speaking toward the apartment, toward the plants listening to their lecture on light, toward the corkboard where our faces stayed young for an unfaithful second. At the door, I stopped. Astrid. She turned. If the missing pieces were the ones that loved you, I said, finishing the question from last night, I think I found one on the rocks. She pressed her forehead to mine, the old, uncarved gesture. Keep looking, she said. I'll hold the lantern. When we stepped inside, the room hummed again, this time with something I chose not to name, for fear of telling it the wrong one. On the kitchen table lay a new paper crane. The window had been latched. We were the only ones with keys. This message in my quick, betraying hand. Tomorrow at dusk. The bench. And under it, a date I did not remember writing. By the time the sun began its slow descent, the town smelled of wood smoke and distance. I walked toward the bench the way one walks toward a confession, unsure whether the truth would heal or ruin what was left. The paper crane sat folded in my pocket again. Astrid had gone to the school, promising she'd meet me later. Don't go before I do, she'd said. But the air was heavy with waiting, and I was tired of being patient with my own ghosts. The fjord mirrored the amber sky, a bruise of gold. Everything was softer edges of houses, wings of gulls, even the sound of my boots on the snow. The bench waited under a street lamp that hadn't yet turned on. Someone was already there. A man in a gray coat, older, face wind-shaped and tired. When he looked up, something in his gaze moved through me like recognition and ache all at once. "Elias," he said. His voice cracked like old wood. "You don't remember me, do you?" I shook my head. He smiled, small and sad. "That's all right. Memory's cruel like that. I'm Eric, your father." The world stopped for one measured breath. "You're real," he said. "And late as usual?" He motioned for me to sit. The snow crunched. The wood was cold through my coat. "I heard you were found by the harbor," he said. "The nurses called. Said you'd lost the thread again." "Again?" He nodded. "It's happened before. The doctors didn't tell you that, did they?" I stared at the fjord. No. You've always walked to the sea when things get too full. You said it empties you, makes space for the noise to settle." He sighed. "Your mother used to wait right here when you went. Said she could feel the tide in her chest until you came back." "She's gone?" I asked quietly. "Years now." He paused, then looked at me carefully. "She liked Astrid, though. Said you finally found someone with steadiness." The sky darkened by degrees. The first street lamp flickered awake. "Dad," I said, the word small but familiar, like a song I didn't know I still remembered. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because we thought we could keep you safe in silence. Because Astrid asked us to." "She knew?" "She always knew," he said softly. "The treatment changed you. The forgetting started months before you vanished. The last time you came here." He stopped. "You left something with me." He reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope, worn from being opened too many times. My name, written in my own hand, stared back at me. I broke the seal. Inside a single page. "If I forget, tell her not to wait. Tell her love isn't what saves us, it's what stays behind. E." My throat burned. "Did you ever tell her?" He looked away. "No, I thought maybe you'd come back ready to rewrite the ending." I laughed once, sharp, hollow. Maybe I did. Maybe this is me trying. He stood, heavy boots pressing the snow flat. "Then try faster, son. Time doesn't bend the way it used to." He put a hand on my shoulder, the kind of gesture that belonged to 1,000 lost days. "Go find her, before the light goes." Then he walked away, leaving a trail of footprints that the snow began to swallow. Astrid wasn't at the bench when the lamps fully bloomed. I waited anyway, notebook open, breath fogging the pages. Every few minutes I wrote something down just to keep the world from blurring. "Wind smells like iron. Dad is real. The sea forgives no one." When the last line froze under my pen, I heard footsteps. Fast, uneven. Astrid appeared, cheeks red, eyes wide with a panic that already knew the answer. "Elias, don't go to the water," she said. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." She grabbed my arm, breath sharp. "You always do this before you disappear. You find a way to say goodbye without saying it. Astrid." She pressed the notebook against my chest. "Read the last page." I looked down. I hadn't written anything there yet, but when I opened it, the page wasn't blank. Ink lines mine already filled it, though the pen I carried had been dry. Day 30. The light went out at 5:47 p.m. Astrid said the sea remembers what we try to forget. If she's right, maybe it remembers me kindly. Tomorrow I will go to the missing shore. If anyone finds this, tell her I kept my promise. I dropped the notebook. Astrid's voice broke. That was a month ago. Before they found you. You left it in the drawer? I don't remember writing it. I know, she whispered. But your body does. The bell at the church struck 6 each note, a slow collapse of light. The tide was rising again, creeping over the stones, hungry and patient. Astrid took my face in her hands. Please, don't go back there. I have to see what I promised. Tears rimmed her lashes like frost. Then let me come. I shook my head. I think this part was meant to be alone. Elias. I kissed her once, soft enough to break. If the sea forgets me, I whispered, don't remind it. She gripped my coat, knuckles white. I'll find you again. I know, I said. You always do. Then I turned toward the path leading to the harbor. Behind me, Astrid's breath hitched like a door that didn't want to close. The snow began again, gentle, deliberate, final. The night smelled like salt and endings. By the time I reached the path to the lighthouse, snow had turned to a fine mist. The sky was the color of breath held too long. I walked without light, following the ghost of my own footprints from the day before. Each step hummed with the sense of repetition of something rehearsed. The paper crane in my pocket had softened, its edges damp, its message already fading under my thumb. Tomorrow at dusk. The bench. But dusk had passed. Now there was only the sound of the sea, restless, calling, and something inside me an echo answering. Halfway down the cliff, I could already hear the waves grinding against the rocks. The old iron ladder trembled under my hands. When I reached the bottom, the tide had risen. Water licked at my boots, patient, expectant. The place looked almost exactly as before. The ring of rust, the scraps of ruined photographs, the bottle wedged between stones. Only now there was a lantern, my lantern set on a flat rock, still burning. I didn't remember bringing it. I didn't remember lighting it. The flame moved with the wind like it was trying to breathe for me. Beside the lantern lay another notebook, its cover swollen from moisture, its edges bitten by salt. I knelt and brushed off the snow. My own handwriting stared back in streaks and blurs, like sentences half drowned. Day 31. Astrid says memory is a house with too many doors. I keep opening the same one, expecting light, finding tide. If I go, it won't be to escape. It will be to listen. My throat tightened. Another line below, shakier. Day 32. The sea forgets no one. It just waits until we remember what we asked of it. The page ended there. But tucked between the covers was something else, a photograph, unspoiled by water. Astrid standing on this very shore, sunlight cutting across her face. My arm around her shoulders. On the back, written in blue ink, you said the sea keeps promises. I'm holding you to it. A sound broke the air footsteps slipping against stone. I turned. Astrid stood a few meters away, her coat soaked, hair clinging to her face. She was breathing hard, as if she'd run the whole way from town. "You promised," she said, voice shaking. "You said no more secrets." "I didn't call this one a secret," I said softly. "I called it an answer." She came closer, eyes wild with fear. "You don't have to do this again. We can start over. We can build something new from what's left." "I don't know if there's anything left," I said. "Every time I close my eyes, the sea shows me pieces of something I did, something I broke." Her hands trembled. "Then let me share it, please." I shook my head. "You already have." She stared, lost. "What do you mean?" I handed her the notebook. "You wrote this part." She frowned, opened it, and froze. Because on the next page beneath my entries were words in her handwriting. "If you come back here, I'll follow. If you go into the water, I'll wait. If you forget, I'll remember twice." She looked at me, tears cutting lines down her cheeks. "I wrote that a month ago, when they told me you were gone." "I know," I said. "And I think I came back to keep it true." A gust lifted the lantern flame sideways. It flared, then steadied. Astrid took my hand. "You said you wanted to see what the sea remembers on its own. Don't you think it's done enough?" "I don't think the sea remembers me yet," I said. "Not completely." "Then I'll remind it." Her grip was firm, desperate, alive. I looked at her, the woman who had followed me through silence, through illness, through forgetting itself. "I don't want you to drown with me," I said. "Then don't drown," she said. "Stay." The water climbed another inch. It lapped at the stones like time counting down. "I can feel it," I whispered. "The rest of it the night I fell. I came here. I brought the boat. I wanted to finish what the sickness started, but the sea didn't take me. It only took the part that remembered you. Then take it back." She cried. I smiled faintly. "That's what I'm trying to do." She shook her head, sobbing now. "You're scaring me." "Don't be afraid. I think I finally understand." I stepped forward. The water reached my knees, cold and endless. The lantern light turned the waves to molten gold. Astrid screamed my name, but her voice fractured against the wind. "I love you," she said. "I know," I said. "That's why this hurts." I turned one last time. The world behind her blurred, the cliff, the snow, her trembling outline. And then the water rose, and the light became everything. Later they said she was found on the rocks, her coat soaked, clutching a notebook against her chest. The pages were dry, the ink unblurred. The last line written there in a hand neither hers nor mine. "The sea remembers. It always does. It has been 47 days since the water stopped answering back. The town has already moved on to other kinds of silence, the kind that grows in markets, in classrooms, in the space between bells. The sea still breathes, but I think it does so more carefully now, as if it too is afraid of remembering too much. They say winter will end early this year. I don't believe it." I kept the apartment. The plants on the windowsill bend toward whatever light they can find. Some mornings I talk to them the way he used to talk to film negatives, softly, as if the right tone could coax an image from shadow. His coat still hangs by the door. I tried to move it once, but the air changed. I put it back. The corkboard remains, though the photographs have begun to curl. One of them, the pier, taken before the storm, keeps falling to the floor, no matter how many pens I use. I've stopped putting it back. Maybe gravity knows something I don't. Every afternoon, I walk to the bench. The snow is thinner now, but the wood still remembers our weight. Sometimes I bring a notebook. Sometimes I just listen. People greet me gently, the way you greet someone who carries a secret she can't set down. The man with the red cap still smokes by the harbor. The baker's dog still wears his orange scarf. Life continues, stubborn and ordinary. I like that. It means he didn't take the world with him when he went. 2 weeks ago, the tide pulled back farther than I'd ever seen. The missing shore was visible, even from the pier, a dark bruise under the glass of the sea. I thought I saw a glimmer there, something caught in the rocks. When the water returned, I went down. There, half buried in sand, was the lantern. Its glass was cracked, its metal rusted almost to bone. Inside, wrapped in salt and time, was another paper crane. I unfolded it carefully. The paper tore at the edges, but held together enough for 3 words. Still here, E. The ink had bled, but I knew that handwriting better than my own heartbeat. I sat on the rock for a long time, the wind tugging at my scarf, the sea moving in slow, deliberate breaths. It wasn't a haunting. It was a presence, a memory remembering itself. That night I wrote him a letter. Elias, you were right. The sea keeps its promises. It kept you. It kept me. I no longer wait for the tide to give you back. I only wait to recognize the sound of you in the water. When it comes, I will not be afraid. A. I folded it into a paper crane and set it afloat. The water carried it farther than I expected, until the dark swallowed the white, and the white became light. This morning the bell struck 6, and I swear I heard a camera click somewhere behind the sound. A small, familiar note, the way the world says remember when it doesn't have to. If the fjord can forget and still go on breathing, so can I.